Hello, my name is Tim Baillie, and this is my 2019 Installer of the Year video interview. First question is, how did I evolve this year professionally and personally? And this whole year actually started before this year. It started in July 1st, 2017. I made the decision that I needed to be a better person, a healthier person. The health part was number one goal. I had just started seeing a new doctor, and he did a bunch of blood work and basically sat me down and said, you're pretty healthy for, a pretty big guy, for a very obese man. He said, right now you don't really have any medical concerns, all things considered. But when that bullet comes, it's going to come at you hard and it's going to come at you fast, and you really need to start thinking about doing something about your weight. And he suggested that I look into weight loss surgery. And so, doing a bunch of research, I decided this was something that I was going to undertake. And he got me into a program through the local, through the government, basically through the provincial government. And the entire program, has multiple levels. There's psychiatrists and nutritionists and people to help in every way. And the biggest thing that I learned at the beginning was I needed to get my head straight. All the diets in the world, all the different, things, all the best intentions weren't going to help if my head wasn't right, and I wasn't in it to actually do something. So I started on a change. I changed my eating plan. I started eating in a keto eating plan, basically. Eating keto allowed me from July 1st to January 4th lose 76 pounds, which in its own right was huge. In that time frame, that's a lot of weight in a fairly short amount of time. January 4th, 2018, I went under the knife and I had gastric bypass. And from January 4th, 2018 to now, which is July 21st, I think it is, Sunday, I've lost a total of 232 pounds, I think it is. Somewhere around there, fluctuates. But anyways, the whole, changing me has changed everything about my life. And it's changed me professionally in ways that I couldn't even imagine. Doing things that, I've been doing this 30 years. This is my 30th year as, in the mobile electronics industry and building cars and hot rods and, stuff professionally. And, I'm doing stuff now that I've literally never been able to do. I don't remember the last time I actually was able to crawl into the trunk of a car, work inside the trunk, like maybe in the early days back, 1990, 91, I don't know. But even then, I was a big guy, but I wasn't as big as I was, at the highest weight, I guess. So, it's changed everything. I mean, just effortlessly crawl under cars, crawl under dashes, crawl in trunks. It's hard to explain the differences that it's made. Unless you've been in that position where you've made such a drastic change in your life that you're getting to experience so many new things every day. People just like, oh, that's cool. But then you actually talk to somebody, I talk to a lot of people online, Facebook and the bariatric groups and stuff where, they have several, similar journeys and stuff. And, and they get to relate, like, I built a Chevy C10 show truck that I took to SEMA in 2011. I've basically never driven the thing. I've driven it like 4 times. I was too big to fit behind the steering wheel. It wasn't safe for me to drive. Now I completely fit behind the wheel, and that one little thing is monstrous for me. That makes the whole journey worthwhile, being able to drive that truck. Little things like going into a restaurant, sitting in a booth, being able to actually fit in a booth, not have to ask for ask for a table without arms on it, so on and so on. Life was so limited for me. And this last year, it's been insane, absolutely insane. The littlest things every day, trying new things, just, it's hard to explain. It really is. but it's affected me, in a positive way, personally, because I'm happier at home. I'm doing more things with my wife, my dog, with my family. I'm not limited to, I need to sit down every 2 minutes because my back's killing me and I'm out of breath and all that. So just interaction, general interaction with people, is completely different. I used to, I'd walk around and my head would be down all the time. I'd be looking at my feet because I just wanted to make eye contact with people, because, when you're 454 pounds, you're the white elephant in the room, literally. Everybody's looking at you. Kids are making comments, people are making comments under their breath. Now I walk with my head high. I look people in the eye. Before, I'd see somebody that I knew, and I would find myself actually like looking and going a different way so that I wouldn't have to, interact with them, because I was just so embarrassed. Now I seek out people. I actually walk up to people I don't even know it, networking things, and talk to people. That's something I've never done. I've never had the confidence to do it. So, that aspect professionally has been profound. It's opened up a lot of doors for me. I'm at a job where, my weight wasn't a concern getting this job, but now without having the weight, my contribution, to the company and my job is, night and day different. I look back and all the things that, I couldn't do over the years, in this job. And I was pretty lucky. I worked for a lot of good shops. I worked with a lot of good people that, were kind and understanding and helpful, and never really said anything. But if I needed, them to jump in a trunk and hook up a speaker or do whatever, they were more than willing to help. Granted, I was the fab guy, so when they needed something built, I was the first one they'd come to, and we just kind of traded off and helped each other in that aspect. I worked for some assholes. I had a manager or an owner tell me that I was too fat to be a manager because the general public wouldn't take me serious. Started looking for a new job pretty much right after that. But yeah, I've worked for some great people, and to all those people, thank you. You've helped me have this great 30-year career, which I say 30 years, and it doesn't even feel like 10 sometimes. I've had a blast for 30 years doing something that I love, working on cars, building stuff, coming up with crazy things, interacting with people, traveling. Back in my early days competing in Alaska, spent 10 years basically traveling all around North America, made lifelong friends. It's been, incredible. So those are, that's the biggest, way that I've evolved this year professionally and personally, is, getting my health in order. I've been helping a lot of people too. I've had a lot of people come to me, friends, strangers, stuff like that have come to me and said, hey, you're inspiring us to get healthy. It's cool to help somebody figure out how to, build a sub box, or, cut an acrylic panel on a router or something. But when somebody comes to me and says, you inspired me to do what you did, and, to try and do what you're doing, making a difference with your health and stuff like that. That's something I can't even explain how cool it is. I've got a few personal longtime friends that, are getting their health in order. One of my closest and oldest friends, he's down like almost 200 pounds now. He didn't take the weight loss surgery route, but, he's changed his eating, exercising more. And like I said, he's down, close to 200, if not a little over 200. Just the other night I had a friend message me. He goes, I need your help. I'm embarrassed. I don't know what to do, or, he goes, you inspired me to take this, challenge on and get it under control because you did it. And if you can do it, anybody can do it. And I don't quite know how to take that, but it's true, because I spent 30 plus years being severely overweight, and I always wanted to lose weight, but I never wanted to do the work. I never wanted to go through the motions and actually do it. I did it once for a little bit, but then I put it all back on. But at the end of the day, I didn't have the motivation. I didn't have the right mindset, to change, for the better and for the good. So he said, what do I need to do? So I said, well, if you're asking for my help, I said, you're not going to like it. He's like, well, why is that? And I said, because I'm going to hound the shit out of you. I'm going to message you every day, are you doing this? Are you doing that? But I said, I'll get you started, and I'll walk you through the steps, of how I started. And I said, ultimately, take what I tell you and figure out if it works for you. Because, in my bariatric program, there was a lot of stuff that I was supposed to do, and it just didn't work for me, whether it, didn't help me lose weight, or didn't help with, my mindset, or whatever the case may be. The biggest thing that I've learned on this entire journey, and I think it's pretty much anything in life, you need to figure out what works for you. You can't just take somebody else's program, drop it in your life, and expect the same results, because we're all different. So having people come to me and say, you've inspired me to get healthy is pretty cool. The other things that that I've evolved with greatly this year, and I'm almost positive it has a lot to do with my new mindset. Being a better person, letting go of old things, not holding grudges, just moving on and cutting all these negative types of things out of my life is learning more. Taking on things like Learn Infusion 360, so that we can get our CNC router up and running to be fully operational, and making good money with it. And basically adding a second, or not a second, but another body to the company that's producing income. So with that being said, that's basically how I've evolved personally and professionally over the last 12 months, over the last 18 months, pretty much. Just trying to reinvent myself in every aspect. The mindset, health, family, professionally. I'm 49 years old. I'm way too old to hold grudges and have the old Sheldon Cooper, you're dead to me list. People who have done me wrong and made comments, and it's just, if you don't let go of it, you keep giving them power, and you keep living in the past, and living in the past is not healthy, and it's not a place that was fun. So why keep staying there? Enjoy life, find new people, keep your circle small, because you only need, some really, really good friends. You don't need a bunch of okay friends with a few crappy friends. All people really need in life is some really good people around you, professionally and personally, and just feed off of each other and their positivity and your positivity. And the saying is, we can do a little bit, but together we can do a whole lot. And I think that's what a lot of it comes down to, is together we can do a whole lot. So let's do a whole lot, guys. Hello, this is my main vehicle entry. It is a 2008 BMW M5. The first place that we started at on the interior was we needed to upgrade the old wood grain trim that was in the car. It had a very plywood light color to it, and it really was not attractive at all. So we removed all of the wood grain out of the car, and then took it and had our painter spray it with House of Colors smoked candy to give it a more modern, updated feel to it. From there, we started with our doors. We sound deadened the doors for our new components, ran wires into each door for coaxials in the back, mids and tweets in the front, sound deadened all of the doors. New speaker wires were twisted, wrapped in Tessa taped, tie wrapped to factory harnesses, and then had Molexes put on the end of each one so that each speaker was serviceable. Mounting plates for the speakers were routed out of acrylic. The speakers that we use don't actually come with mounting tabs. They come with little clips so that they can actually click into place. So we made the acrylic rings so that we could utilize these pop-in clips for the speakers. These are used on the front and rear doors, and then bolted into where the factory speakers went for easy serviceability. Moving to the trunk, we took the entire trunk and sound deadened everything throughout the entire car, top to bottom, inside and out. The factory amplifier was removed and all of the speaker wires were placed on barrier strips and labeled for easy servicing and upgrades made down the road. On the passenger side, all the system fusing was also mounted on acrylic sheets, labeled and mounted for ease of service and upgrading. The amp rack for the car was constructed out of aluminum tubing that was bolted into the car using threaded inserts and stainless fasteners. Battery upgrades were done by removing the factory battery and adding two separate batteries, one for the car and one for the stereo. Both batteries were isolated using a Sure Power intelligent separator, which allows the second battery to not be connected to the vehicle until the first battery actually reaches 13.7. Next, we move to the sub enclosure. The sub enclosure is made out of 3/4 inch PVC and heavily braced for the two 10-inch subwoofers. The reason for using PVC was the enclosure was going to be mounted over the rear end of the car, and we didn't want to have any squatting issues on the suspension. The enclosure was ported up through the rear deck, and heavy bracing was used, and then the entire enclosure was painted black. From there, we built the amp rack using frosted acrylic and RGB lighting to light up the actual amp rack. The amp rack was mounted inside the aluminum framework, which hinges up to be able to access the tires. The trunk floor and all the other trunk panels were made out of PVC. We then started our subwoofer grille, which was comprised of several layers of 1/4 inch acrylic, of which we individually painted in the three BMW M colors, the red, purple, and blue. The top layer was painted body color, and then the bottom layer was used frosted acrylic so we could use RGB lighting on it. We created a Trick Factory emblem using our 3D printer and using clear filament for it. This was also edge lit and backlit using end lighted acrylic so that the entire flat piece of the acrylic would light up as well and flash the BMW M series colors. The amp rack was then drilled, tapped, and threaded to be able to mount the amplifiers so that they could easily be removed. We took each amplifier, painted them satin body color, and then using a flood filling technique with a needle, we added paint to the sunk-in Moscone logos on top of the amplifier. Each of the M part of the logo was filled with the three BMW M series colors, the red, purple, and the blue, while the rest of the logo was filled with black. The amps were labeled so that we knew what each amplifier did, so they'd be easy to tune and service and be removable with everything labeled for easy tuning. The processor rack was mounted on the driver's side, which was also mounted to acrylic, drilled and tapped so that each item would be easily removable with machine screws. The entire rack was labeled and used barrier strips for all of the wire terminations again to make it easy to service and for upgrades. The DRC controller for the DSP was then mounted in the coin tray, was flushed in, painted a textured paint, and then we added a small acrylic trim lit up with blue LEDs so it would match the lighting of the actual DRC panel. Moving back to the trunk, the entire trunk was made out of either acrylic or PVC. We started with the framework for all the side panels, which was built out of PVC strips, curved and then formed to the rubbers of the car for a smooth transition. Once that framework was built, it was attached with magnets to the trunk floor so that everything in the trunk comes apart using magnets and there's no screws to hold anything in. This framework was then filled with 2-part foam, sanded, fiberglassed, and then had the foam carved out from behind to make the panel super light and thin and easy to get in and out of the vehicle. Once the panels were sanded smooth, we wrapped them in an OEM textured leather matched vinyl to match the front end of the car. The pressed subwoofer grille incorporated the 3 M-Series slats in it to tie together the whole M-Series theme of the vehicle with the M-Series colors and the 3 layers. The entire trunk was designed was based off a more subtle, elegant look to keep with the theme of the BMW M-Series. The trim panel under the rear deck, which was also held in with magnets, houses an M-Series logo, LED lighting, holds the switches hidden underneath to be able to turn on all the RGB lighting in the car, as well as control the dome light in the trunk. Because the car is driven daily in nice weather during the spring and summer, we constructed a tray in the floor of the trunk to protect the amplifiers and the subwoofer grille from anything that the owner would put in there, such as bags, groceries, and other items from rolling around and doing damage to the panels or the subwoofer grille or the amplifiers themselves. My role in the company, actually, I wear quite a few different hats. You know, I'm the car audio guy, I'm the wiring guy, the electrical guy. You know, when it comes to basically like plastics, wood, any, you know, composite stuff like that, I'm the fabricator here. We have actual metal fabricators as well, but they don't get into the plastics and interior work and stuff like that a lot. But I also do, you know, I help and work with the branding side of the company. Project manager, I also handle all of the sponsorship requests and stuff for our various projects. This year alone we have like 6 cars all going to SEMA. So managing those projects, managing all of our partners and parts and stuff is a job, you know, all on its own. And, you know, I keep everything on track as far as, you know, details and stuff like that. Myself and 2 owners, you know, we're all really detail oriented people, so it's fantastic to work with a group of people that just want to put out, the 1,000% the best product out there that we can. We don't spare any expense when it comes to projects. We don't hold back on building stuff. So my value, bringing my attention to detail, my OCD on the littlest of things, it tends to wear off on people around here. They do something they're proud of, they throw it back at me, hashtag killing it or details matter. Which shows me that they're taking pride in what they're doing, and I'm having an influence, big or small, on what it is they do each day, in their job role here, and the part that they play in building the cars that we put out. So, that's pretty cool, having people come to me and say, hey, we're building this car for SEMA, what do we need for parts? And you got to sit there and basically build the car in your head on paper, figure out all the parts you need, all the vendors you need to go to, start putting proposals together, getting renderings done, and then working with the marketing people, our social media director and stuff throughout the project, making sure that we're documenting the builds properly, that we're providing content for our partners so that they can put it up on their social media outlets, websites, videos, et cetera, and that it's also content that, of course, that we're using, and then, making sure that both parties are cross-sharing, cross-promoting, tagging each other, tying into our audience, tying into our partner's audience to basically grow our audience. It's a lot of work, but it's really cool being able to interact with all these different people, different companies, different parts, building all these different cars, hot rods, supercars, for some of the biggest companies out there, people like Kicker and, wheel companies, stuff like that. It's really cool, really, really cool. So, I think that my OCD and my attention to detail brings a lot of value to the company, and those qualities wear off every day on the people around here. Just as their qualities wear off on me, wanting to take things that I don't know, wanting to learn things that I don't know, have them teach me so that I can better myself and better my contribution to the company, my overall abilities and stuff. It's pretty cool. So, that's how basically, I'm influencing everybody around me. Another car that we had the pleasure of building for the 2018 SEMA show was a 1960 Impala convertible. We also used this car to compete in the Battle of the Builders contest that they hold each year at the SEMA show. Out of a couple thousand cars that enter on average, we made the second round, so we made the 220 car cutoff, which was pretty cool for our first time competing in this. Electrical wise, this car has a lot going on. We have a lot of ECUs for the motor, for the transmission, the air ride control, Dakota digital gauges, the vintage air HVAC controls. We have a lot of equipment in this car as well. Audio, Bluetooth, media center, just a ton of stuff and a ton of wiring. So everything in this car is on some kind of a quick disconnect plug, Molex connector, or barrier strips, so that each component in this car could be, removed for servicing, removed for upgrades. If we wanted to replace an amplifier, a speaker, or whatever, it's not cutting wires so they get shorter and shorter each time. It's all on quick disconnects or barrier strips so that we can get to it super easy, make changes, etc. Everything in the car is on threaded inserts with machine screws, from the speakers, amp rack, everything, air tank, compressor, batteries is all held in with threaded inserts, T-nuts, or some kind of a quick release fastener to also make serviceability good on this. Everything is heat shrunk soldered where a connector is not used, so any other kind of joins, things like ring terminals, spade connectors for relays, etc., all that is heat shrunk as well. All the harnesses in the car are Tessa taped, so that if you do get up underneath the dash of the car, it's not going to be a jumble of hot rod wiring like a lot of people do, so everything's hidden in tightly tie-wrapped bundles of Tessa tape. Everything built in the car is acrylic, PVC plastic, or aluminum. All of the speaker grills and amplifier rack trim was all hand routed out of 3/8 aluminum. Was sent then to our polishing department where they polished it to a mirror finish. Then handed off to our paint department where it was clear coated with Cerakote, so it's extremely durable. It's not going to scratch with cleaning. It's not going to oxidize or anything. It's going to keep that mirror finish all the time. The acrylic grill trim was all done in acrylic and then sent to our paint department for single stage black gloss. Back to the aluminum trim, all of the profiles that were used, round over on the outer and a cove on the inner, actually matches a lot of the factory trim used by General Motors back in the late 50s, early 60s, and a lot of their trim. So we wanted to keep it modern looking, but somewhat period correct. The trim of that we mimicked a lot was the factory speaker grill in the back seat. It has a distinctive round over on the outside and a cove on the inside of it, which is visible on the back seat. And we also placed one of those grills in the trunk area to kind of pull the interior into the trunk. We also used the stainless buttons that we used in the seats on the rear side panels in the trunk, which behind that on one side is the battery and the air tank for the air ride, and on the other side behind the panel is the compressor, the ECU, and the air ride manifold. All the trunk panels are held in with either magnets or pressure fit. We actually made some acrylic trim or PVC trim pieces actually for the trunk lid, where they have the different openings from the brace underneath the hood. So wrapped PVC pieces, wrapped those in a package tray material out of a Mercedes. It was a very thin, almost velour type material, and then those are all held on the trunk lid with actual magnets. All the pressed grills that were built for the car were then sent to our powder coating department for strength and durability, sandblasted, and then run through our powder coat. All the grills in the car have a Trick Factory, our TFC shield, which we 3D printed a PLA filament and then painted a titanium silver color, which actually matches some of the trim underneath the hood, including the exhaust manifolds. Everything in the car is essentially 3 layers, 3 colors. Audio-wise, interior-wise, we have the black leather, the black high gloss to match the paint on the exterior of the car, and then polished chrome. Exterior-wise, interior, and a bit of the stereo, we also have Tiffany blue. The customer brought us a Tiffany sunglass case, wanted this blue used sparingly throughout the car, so we had it color matched, and then sprayed some of the inserts on the trim, the engine block, the exterior side trim insert, and our sponsor plaque in the trunk also has the same Tiffany blue on it. So my activities, outside of the job, that I partake in to help other professionals and make the industry better, stuff like that. It's probably for the most part, it's pretty much the same as other people that are in this position, top 12 installers, former installers of the year, retailers, stuff like that. Being on the in the Facebook groups, being on Instagram, still even on some forums, they still exist, which is kind of surprising. I thought Facebook groups replaced all those, but just out there answering questions. And to be honest, I find that I don't spend as much time in a lot of the car audio groups as I used to. Pretty much just because my everything in my life has kind of evolved. The world has gotten a little bit bigger for me. than just car audio. I mean, I've built hot rods for the last 20 years as well. But so I mean, I'm in those groups and on those forums and stuff like that, and helping those kind of people with stuff that we do, here in the mobile electronics industry, for guys that are building systems, say at a hot rod shop, or doing interior work. But as I'm evolving, I'm helping more people outside of our industry, like woodworking and Fusion 360, CNC routers. Even though my knowledge is kind of limited in a few of those, I'm offering, and helping people that are kind of in my situation where, you have to kind of learn this stuff based on what you're producing. And a lot of the stuff that's out there might not be relevant to what, we're building here. So a lot of it is not really needed, and it kind of, I guess you'd kind of say, it overloads you with unneeded, unwanted information. So sometimes it's easier to talk to somebody that's actually using the tooling and the software and the machinery for what you're doing, and learn how to use it more towards your needs, instead of somebody that's just simply modeling stuff. They're not actually producing parts for whatever. But then, like I was saying earlier too, I help a lot of people with trying to get healthy. Help people with getting their mind straight. This industry as a whole has always been pretty unhealthy. The car audio industry, the hot rod industry, a lot of them share a lot of similarities, in the sense that we've always felt an obligation to put the customer first. Always get the car out first and do whatever it takes to get the job done, which is nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, as a shop owner, you need to look after your staff. And as an installer, technician, fabricator, you need to look after yourself first and foremost. And you need to change the shop culture so that you're taking a proper lunch, your staff is taking a proper lunch, they have time to basically take a break, put their mind on pause for a few minutes, get some rest, and then come back at it after lunch. But the biggest thing that was my issue over 30 years was, I'd rush to work, have a huge breakfast on the road, I'd get to work, I'd work till 2, 3 o'clock, and realize, holy crap, I haven't had lunch. I'd run to the closest thing that was around, grab a huge lunch because I'm starving, have a huge lunch, work till like 7 or 8, 9 o'clock, and then go home, and because once again I'm hungry, have a huge dinner, and then flop my ass on the couch, and that was my day. And I'm not saying that's everybody in the industry, but I know it's a lot of you. I know it's a lot of installers and builders and stuff. That's their life. 5 days a week, and sometimes it turns into 6 and 7 days a week. Pizza for dinner because the boss is buying it, and I'll stick around and work late on the car, and I'll buy dinner. And it works for some people, but I was at Knowledge Fest a couple of years ago, and I can tell, myself included, that it has not worked for a lot of people. There's a lot for people that work under dashes and work in trunks and work in interiors and under hoods and stuff. There's a lot of overweight people in this industry, and we need to do some things to change that. And that's what I'm trying to do is help people in this industry and people around me get healthier. Because at the end of the day, one way to look at it is this industry is not getting any bigger. The industry is, but our staffing isn't. Every shop out there is looking desperate for more people, and we're not replenishing our staff. When our fabricators and salesmen and stuff, for the most part, are going away. They're either retiring or getting out of the industry. We're not bringing up new people behind us like we were in the 90s. So, being able to have healthier staff means they're going to want to work longer. They're going to want to do this as a career longer because they can fit in their dashes, they can, get on their knees and get under hoods, stuff like that. So, and you yourself, we're going to be able to be healthier and stay in it longer. So, having healthier people, healthier staff, it's a win-win for everybody. Plus, what are you going to do? If you get out of this industry and you've been in it for 30 years and you're not healthy, you probably don't have a whole lot of other opportunities, outside of what you've done your whole life. So, if I can help somebody get healthier, I'm all for that. And, that's one of the biggest ways that I'm giving back to, helping other professionals in our industry, and that is trying to do my best to try and get people healthy, one person at a time. And I mean, 3 years ago, even 2 years ago, I did not think that this would be something that I would be doing, undertaking, learning how to help people better, and being an inspiration to people. This is not something that I thought I would be at in my life at 49 years old, but here I am. If that's not proof that anybody can change, I don't know what else there is out there. Cosmetic integration. We have here a 1956 Chevy Bel Air. Customer brought the car in, wanted to do an LS motor swap, and also wanted to do a stereo in the car, but he didn't want to address the paint or really the interior for now. So for this season, we basically want to do the system in the car, but keep with the overall theme, appearance, but with an upgraded integration with the original interior, which is a black with kind of a yellowy white. It's called an ivory white. So starting in the trunk, we built a PVC sub enclosure for a single 10-inch woofer. Did an amp rack for some existing amplifiers that he had. We took the amplifiers, actually, we stripped them all down, and we Cerakoted them the same satin red that we were doing on the motor and the transmission in the car. We also did all of the acrylic trim for the stereo, and the mesh for all the press grills that we did for the car, also all in the red Cerakote. The 56 Tri-5 Chev, 1955, 6, and 7. There's a million of them on the road. There's a million people have done interiors in them, but a lot of people seem to do the same trunk in them over and over, which is a straight down side panel, straight down panel at the trunk opening, or they'll do a slight round out for whatever reason. I have no idea why they do this round out. It just takes up more trunk. But because the only thing that was really going to be in the trunk was a single 10-inch woofer, a couple amplifiers, and a battery, I really wanted to have a very different look to a Tri-5 trunk than I'd really seen before. So everything got pushed under the rear deck. All of the trim panels were built with a traditional flavor / feel to them, yet with a modern update as far as, no fasteners. But we stuck with the original pleat style for the door panels on the sides. Brought carpet up the side panel slightly, so it wasn't just a straight vinyl side panel like a lot of people do. Everything in the trunk is held in with magnets. The box is bolted to the car with 4 threaded inserts, 4 stainless 1/4-20 socket head bolts. The amp rack is mounted to the sub box with threaded inserts, and then everything from there is mounted off of the box and or the floor using magnets. So I can have the entire trunk minus the box and the amp rack gutted in about 30 to 40 seconds at best. Everything on it, again, typical of what we do, is on barrier strips, quick disconnects, or some kind of a Molex plug so that it comes apart. All the RGB lighting that's on the under deck panel, the side panels, is all on Molex connectors. Kick panels were made out of PVC. Press grills, Cerakoted satin red, acrylic trim, Cerakoted satin red. Made our own custom ring to be able to mount the tweeter in a coax style design, again out of acrylic, and also done with satin Cerakote red. Rear deck houses some 6x9s that the customer already had, so we mounted those underneath the rear deck, replaced the entire parcel tray cover out of ABS, acrylic trim, press grill inserts, wrapped in a tomato vinyl like the rest of the car that matched the seats and the original door panels in the car. Because it is a Tri-5 Chevy, these things always are going to find a way to leak somewhere, somehow. So everything on this car, as far as what we're doing to it up to this point, is out of PVC, whether it be plastic, acrylic, some kind of a composite so that when water gets in, it's not going to rot out. We did use, you know, some 1/4 or 1/8 inch press board to make some templates for our inserts for the side panels in the trunk, but then we just replaced those with ABS and PVC. Used a original hook and loop style carpet on the floor of the trunk, which will eventually be replaced in the interior of the car with the same carpet, the same floor mats. Again, we really wanted to do something different in this car that's not typical for a Tri-5. So by keeping the hinges exposed and making simple covers to go over the hinge area instead of making an entire trim panel with just 2 little U-shaped slots like it's done so many times. Spare tire holder actually holds the fusing for the amplifiers, holds jumper posts to be able to jump the battery, which is beside the sub box, and also a main battery kill switch to kill the entire power of the car. Each of the side panels has an overhang, a reveal at the top, and underneath is an 1/8 inch gap that we place RGB lighting to shine down. A very subtle effect with the LED lighting. We didn't want something that was big and loud and crazy. The only other place for LEDs on it is the amplifier opening. We also Cerakoted that, and then the 1/8 inch flat part of it, we sanded the Cerakote off and then edge lit that. So it has a very subtle, very clean look to it when the LEDs do come on. We have the program for either white or red, depending on you know, what the customer is looking for, and it's done by remote control. The amplifiers, end caps, and center link were all disassembled. We Cerakoted those in the satin red, and then we made one continuous acrylic centerpiece for the entire amplifier setup to cover the links, the end caps, and the centerpiece, so that there wasn't 5 separate pieces. There was just one continuous piece, which gives a much more elegant look to the overall look of the entire interior. Cosmetic integration, we also have a 1997 Mercedes G-Wagon. Pretty much everything that we did to this G-Wagon, we wanted to keep it original looking, from the kick panels, the rear speakers, subwoofer enclosures / amp rack, and even the head unit. The kick panels, we took out the stock 5 1/4s down in the kicks, rebuilt them to house the new woofers out of PVC. PVC grill held on with magnets. Part of it was wrapped in a factory vinyl, part of it was wrapped in a headliner material for package trays and headliners and stuff out of Mercedes. We use this quite a bit because it's super durable, super thin. Rear speakers were also put in the stock location. Somebody a long time ago had put a couple tweeters just right into the door panel, left some nasty holes. So using some acrylic and some upholstery trim, we actually made new wood grain inserts to add to the door to cover up these holes. All of our wood graining, airbrushing was sent down to Mike LaValle at Killer Paint in Washington. So we took a piece of the original wood grain out of the vehicle, sent it to him, along with several pieces, and he matched it almost perfectly. Subwoofer enclosure, the entire design for that was to keep it OEM looking, mounted where the factory jump seat would go, but the grille was designed to mimic the rear spare tire cover. It has a solid cover with an insert, has a black center section with a Mercedes logo. So that entire grille was basically a multi-layered blow-up of that panel on the rear spare tire well. Again, 3 layers, 3 materials. The head unit in it, we used an Alpine Halo 9-inch. Got the extension ribbon cables to extend the face off the deck. We mounted the deck actually inside the glove box took the factory vents out in the center and mounted the screen up kind of where all the new factory Mercedes screens and a lot of other cars for that matter are mounted up high center, easy to see, easy to use. That panel we constructed completely from scratch out of acrylic. It's mounted using the 2 original screws that held the vent into the dash, and that was also sent to Mike for wood graining. Next up, this G-Wagon in 97 didn't come with any cup holders. Owner of the G-Wagon's an avid Starbucks drinker, so he needed to have a cup holder. And since we went with this larger format radio, the perfect place to add a cup holder was down where the single DIN location is in front of the shifter. So getting a slide-out cup holder assembly out of an F350, which is actually our shop truck, so we pilfered it from there and replaced it with a new one off of eBay. Made new brackets, mounted that in where the stock DIN head unit used to go. Made an acrylic face for that, which we then drilled and tapped for small machine screws to be able to mount the new face to the existing cup holder, and then also sent the face of the cup holder to Michael Valley to have that wood grained as also. So, you know, we have black vinyl to match the leather, we have the wood grain, and then we have the headliner package tray material, which actually is pretty much the same cloth that's used on all the factory windlace rubber seals around the doors. So it ties in very nicely to the truck. Speakers are all mounted into stock locations, so stock mounting hardware was used for the speakers throughout, and the sub box was mounted to the where the factory jump seats go. There's 4 10 mil bolts that hold the jump seating, and that is where the sub box and app rack is mounted to. How do I plan to continue to grow this year? Got a couple long-term goals. You know, I want to keep getting healthy. I think I've kind of plateaued with my weight. You know, I'm at about a 214, 215, 214 to 218 range. You know, I had a goal originally of getting down 200 pounds. Well, I've surpassed that. And then my latest goal that I kind of like to do, but if I don't really reach it, that's fine. But I don't know if anybody ever watched The Biggest Loser, but everybody was always like, I want to get in Wonderland, you know, down into the 199 and below. And that would be kind of cool to, you know, as a goal to get to be in the Wonderland, because I don't even remember what age I was, you know, in Wonderland, teenager probably. So that's, you know, part of the plan as far as my continued growth is to, you know, get my weight down a little bit more if possible. If not, whatever. You know, I've already achieved so much. But, you know, next on that path to better health is to get stronger, build up my muscles. I've never been a real, you know, strong guy. You know, even though I was big, I didn't have a whole lot of strength. So, you know, building up my strength is my next big priority. And continuing to grow, you know, my new interests, gardening, you know, CAD programs, CNC routery and CNC woodworking, using the laser more, 3D printing, just evolving my general knowledge of all this new technology that our industry has embraced over the last couple of years. Because it's not going to stop. It's just going to get crazier and crazier with the technology that we use every day in our life. So being able to stay on top of that is a big part of my growth plan for the next 12 to 24 months. Going to start taking, you know, some evening classes, some courses, you know, community college type stuff. You know, stuff that I just never cared about in the past. You know, was always too tired, always hurting too much. You know, didn't want to be in public. So, you know, going out and expanding those horizons. You know, and some personal hobby type stuff. You know, like I discovered gardening and landscaping and stuff like that. It's kind of cool. It's kind of, you know, rewarding and helps take your mind off things. So it's pretty cool in that respect. But that's part of my growth plan, is just continue my education, learning stuff, continuing to help people, and just overall start, you know, keep going as far as being a better person, becoming better and better, letting go of more and more, because it doesn't just happen overnight. You just don't wake up the next morning and forget everything that's ever gone on in your life, and and stuff like that. And just continuing to be better. Personal growth is my number one goal for the next foreseeable future, is just get better at everything that I'm doing, and hopefully it rubs off on people around me and it can help them get to a better place in their life. In 2018, we were lucky enough, very fortunate actually, to have 3 cars that were going to the 2018 SEMA show. One of them being the 2012 Nissan GTR, owned by social media icon guru Dogzilla 12. Very high profile Liberty Walk car. Had been at SEMA before as version 1, and this was version 2 body kit that was going back. So we wanted to do something that was pretty over the top. Everything about this car was loud, in your face. The Liberty Walk body kit is world famous for its pocketed bolts that basically bolt what they call the over the fender style, where the body kit itself is bolted to the car and each of the bolts is pocketed into the fiberglass body kit, similar to how Bushwhacker used to make their flares back in the day, and still kind of do basically. So everything about this install had to be over the top. It's something that's a little out of my comfort zone over the years. I've been known for very detailed but subtle systems where you kind of have to take a look at it to see all of the work and all the details in it. So this one really was fun to do. Little things like all the bolts, they're like, I think they're like $9 each American out of the States, or out of the company down in the States. And with the time frame that we had to build the vehicle, we just couldn't get enough of them, and it was just not cost effective for the 100 and something bolts that we needed at like $10 each. So we bought a box of socket head bolts, put them in our lathe, and actually machined each of them down, and then painted them with gloss black paint to match the bolts that come with the body kit. Everything in the car is made out of PVC and acrylic. We had actually just gotten a CNC router, didn't even have it really up and running when this car started. So as we call the Liberty Walk grills that we built for the doors and for the A-pillars, the amp rack, were actually all built by hand before we even got the router up and running. We basically, the boring bit, drilled the pockets in on the drill press, and then took a series of roundover bits to achieve the same look to the grill trim. And then as we got our CNC router operational, we were able to make the large Liberty Walk trim for the subwoofer box to house the 4 10-inch woofers, standing just over 2 3/4 inches tall, swooping effects similar to the rear fenders of the body kit, same pocketed bolts all the way around it, gloss black insert matched the gloss black part of the body kit and the hood. And then was color matched, which is a Lamborghini, I believe it's a Gallardo blue is what the car ended up being painted for its version 2 body kit. The subwoofer box, again, we needed something that was going to be loud looking, very cool, very different. GTRs, they have a back seat, but it's really not something that's really, people can't really sit in the back seat. So losing the back seat for the subwoofer enclosure, making it kind of a binocular Geordie LaForge from Star Trek kind of look, really played into the whole in-your-face theme. The box itself is mounted to a steel platform. We referred it to as the diving board because it was mounted to the back sheet metal where the back seat used to be, bolted in where a lot of the brackets for the back seat and everything bolted in, and then took the weight of, with a lot of gusseted brackets, was able to take the weight of the subwoofer box, extend it out over top of the amp rack, and not have any issues when driving down the road of this thing moving around or bouncing or anything. So sandwiched between the Liberty Walk trim and the high gloss black, we also added blue LEDs to give it a highlight. Being in the back seat, we wanted to be able to light it up
subtly, of course, to kind of pull people's attention into the backseat area. The box was actually mounted to the springboard using custom machined bolts and large washers to be able to house everything. Again, LED lights in the sub box, LED lights under the amps themselves, using two 5-channels, basically a 3-way setup in the front with a sub, so each amp on each side of the car runs each side of that car. 2 subs, the mids, the tweets, and the mid bass on each side off of each amplifier. All the panels are wrapped in factory matched vinyl to the plastic and to the leather of the car. Second battery was added to the trunk, again with a battery isolator from Sure Power, so that the second battery wouldn't be connected to the car until the starting battery reached its peak at 13.7 volts. Again, this car was at SEMA in the Liberty Walk dub booth, so it was a pretty exciting build for us. One of the other vehicles we also had the pleasure of building this year for SEMA was another one of Dogzilla 12's car, which is a 2017 Acura NSX. It's actually, at the time, was the first wide body air ride NSX on the planet. It was the car that was used to build the Liberty Walk kit, the prototype Liberty Walk kit. It was the car that was built, that had the Army Tricks exhaust system built, the prototyping. Both companies actually flew their techs over to Canada, 3D scanned the entire car to build all of these products off of. So just like the GTR that we did for JJ, again the theme was over the top, but not a whole lot of room in this car like we had in the GTR. So, you know, minimal design, 2-way components in the front, single 5-channel, single 10-inch woofer, had to fit all the air ride into the car, and still, you know, make it usable and not give it a cramped look. So using the same over the fender Liberty Walk style with the bolts, etc. We decided to use the existing grills in the car, and then focus our attention on the subwoofer grill and the amp rack, which we did in the Liberty Walk style with the bolts. Again, taking more of the bolts, machining them ourselves, doing them in a high gloss black. 3D printed the amp rack itself and the grill surround with our TSC shield in the center. In-house, painted everything in-house, color matched the subwoofer grill, the amp rack, to the dark red leather that was in the car. Gloss black TSC shield and gloss black press grill to match all the gloss black trim that is on the actual car itself. The single 10-inch woofer only took up a few inches of actual floor space in the car. Really wasn't a lot of usable space for a passenger in this car to begin with, so we really didn't lose a whole lot. The main feature in the trunk was an aluminum plate that we cut on our router using Fusion 360 design. We skeletonized it for amp rack wiring, compressors, dual tanks, and then after we powder coated it satin black, we put it back on our CNC router and engraved the Filthy logo and our TSC shield across it in a pattern that covered up the entire rack for a very cool depth look to it, almost a 3D look with the depth of everything going on in the car. Took the tanks, painted those the same dark red to match the interior, the amp rack, the subwoofer grill, all the air ride components. We used the satin black finishes from Airlift Performance. Really wasn't a whole lot of room in this car for a second battery, but we needed one for the stereo and the lighting and the air ride. So we cut a battery rack out of aluminum on our router as well, using Fusion 360, TIG welded it all together, Cerakoted it, glacier black, and mounted up into the front passenger wheel well, which was pretty much the only spot in the entire car to house a small battery. For fabrication, we recently had a customer bring in his 2005 1200 horsepower Corvette C6. It wanted a lot of small detail custom work done to it. The first item that we had to do was add new custom extended rear wheel well tubs. The car had wide body fenders put on to fit in the weld wheel drag racing slicks in the back, but the factory inner liners weren't wide enough to fit the new wide body fenders. So taking a mold of the original fenders, we created new ones out of fiberglass. Next up, we need to fit the hood around the Holley intake manifold. So we started basically whittling the hood away 1/8 of an inch at a time until the hood closed down over top of the intake. We then need to make custom hood latch pins for the hood latches because all of the cabling for the hood latch themselves weren't able to be used because of the temperature from the exhaust of the turbos. We then need to make trims for the wastegate exhaust ports, which were made in Fusion 360, cut on our CNC router out of acrylic, and then had them Cerakoted. The final trim pieces were actually milled out of 6mm carbon fiber plate on our CNC router. We used a lot of Cerakote burnt bronze throughout this entire car on everything from the intake manifold, roll bar, and a lot of the small intricate trim pieces. We then had to make mounts for the back of the car to hold the drag wing. Being that the wing itself was made for a Corvette, it didn't actually provide any type of stable mounting for proper use of downforce when drag racing. We also had to make a custom bumper mount for the parachute bracket, as well as the uprights. Once the intake was completed on the hood, we also needed to make a trim that went around the intake to finish off the overall opening. We scanned the hood, created a template out of PVC in Fusion 360, and then cut it out of acrylic and also Cerakoted it in Glacier Black, which is a satin black finish. We then made emblems for the side fenders using the Racing Greed logo. Made initial templates out of acrylic before we finally made them out of 6mm carbon plate, also to keep with the carbon fiber theme in the vehicle. You can see here the carbon fiber emblems, wastegate ports, and exhaust shields for the lower portion of the car. Next, we need to make a new, fancier looking handle for the parachute release. We made our test piece out of acrylic, and then cut the final product out of, again, 6mm carbon plate. The car was then stripped down, painted single stage gloss black. Even though it was a drag car, still got to make it look good going down the track. This car overall is a beast. No detail was missed. Carbon fiber splitter, carbon fiber fenders, carbon fiber emblems, gloss black paint job, powder coated wing, powder coated trim, and lots of Cerakote burnt bronze. We recently had a local upholsterer come to us, wanted some help with a big project that he had. Didn't have the machines to make a lot of the panels that he needed made. So we undertook the process of making all these panels for him. Everything made was either made out of PVC or out of acrylic, and it was all designed in Fusion 360, and it was all cut on a CNC router. The theme throughout the vehicle was the biscuit look. This was being used on the seats, the door panels, everything. So we carried it from the subwoofer panel down into the custom sill panels, and everything was cut on our CNC router using 3D profiles. All of the milling, the roundovers, everything. Each of the grills housed a spear. Each of them was different sizes based on the size of the grill for the rear fill, front door speakers, and the main subwoofer grill. These were all done also on our router using a 3D contour tool pattern. We also made a small plate out of acrylic with the shop's name that was engraved into it and was later Cerakoted burnt bronze. All the acrylic was sanded, high build primered, and then painted in a metallic chocolate brown that actually matched the motor color of the car. The press grills were then also Cerakoted in a burnt bronze. All the spears on the grills were mounted with threaded machine screws into the acrylic, and the grills themselves were mounted into the panels, also using machine screws and threaded inserts. Cerakote is a finish that's used on most handguns, any type of weaponry. It's a very thin, durable coating that takes a lot of heat, scratch resistant for the most part, very similar to powder coat, but extremely thin. So once we had cut all the panels, the upholsterer wrapped them all and installed them in the car. The custom sill panels were also used to mimic the biscuit pattern on the seats and the door panels. They were engraved, trimmed to the floor, countersunk screws, and then also Cerakoted in the burnt bronze for a matte finish.
I should be the 2019 installer of the year because, I mean, I guess unlike everybody else is going to answer this question, all the 11 other people, I put my best foot forward, I produce awesome stuff, I build cool cars, I help other people out. So it's kind of a hard question without sounding cliche or like everybody else, but for myself, becoming installer of the year would be kind of the crowning glory of the last 18 months of my life and the change that I have done, the change that I've undertaken. I'm almost positive that the other 11 people in the top 12 haven't been able to experience the growth that I have this year, and being able to go from a place that I was even a year ago, 2 years ago, to where I am now, professionally, being able to do so many more new things, taking on so many more new challenges, stuff that they may have been doing for a while, but coming from basically essentially nothing, and being able to keep doing what I'm doing with much more skills and abilities, physically, stuff like that. I can almost guarantee nobody else in the top 12 can say that they've been able to make this kind of growth and change in the last 12 months. So I mean, that there, I think I have an advantage as far as skills and ability. Anybody that's in this top 12, anybody that's in the top 50, really, I think we pretty much all have the same types of skills and abilities on different different areas and different levels. Some are better than others, some are worse than others, but at the end of the day, a lot of us are pretty much on par with one another. So to be able to pick an installer of the year and a runner-up, I think it really has to come down to some of the finer things in our lives and our jobs, and that comes down to making yourself better. And I don't want this entire interview and this entire installer of the year process for me this year to be about my story, but in a lot of ways it is, because it's a huge thing that I've done and that I've achieved. And the end result to me has been spectacular. The stuff that I'm doing now versus 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, there's no comparison. I'm not even the same person at all. And this is the third time that I've done an installer of the year video, being in the top 12. And I look back at the last two, and it was just your typical answers. I work hard, I help people, I build cool stuff, blah blah blah. But I truly, really hadn't made any real strides, huge strides, personally and professionally, that's impacted my life like I have this year. And I don't know if that's the criteria for it, but that's why I think I am the installer of the year, is strictly because of the changes that I've made in my life to be a better person. So I really want to thank you, everybody at Mobile Electronics Magazine. I want to thank everybody that has supported me over the last 30 years, everybody that supported me over the last however long, 12 months, 18 months of my journey, everybody that voted for me to get into the top 12. I can't thank you guys enough for that. It's been truly an honor. And to Chris and Solomon at Mobile Electronics Magazine, keep doing what you're doing. I don't think you probably get enough recognition for everything that you do. So thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video, and thank you for the judges that are going to have to sit down and sit through an hour or so of 12 people's lives and listen to what they have to say to you. So thank you and good luck.
Wasn't pushing the kid to the side, I don't know if you